Good morning and welcome to Green Mountain Presbyterian Church. I'm Pastor Gretchen Hope Wilson. It's my privilege to welcome you to this service. It's wonderful to look out and to see so many of you here in person, and that we're at a time period when we can do that. What a blessing. And we know others are joining us on the live stream, and we're so grateful that you are here with us as well to celebrate Barbara Simon's life. What a beautiful opening we just had. Kim and Sydney, thank you so much. And to hear Barbara playing. Wow, what a beautiful beginning for us. Know that the service will be available later today up on the YouTube channel as well if you would like to go back and see the service again in a recorded fashion. But know that we are pleased to be the host site today for this service to celebrate Barbara Simon's incredible life. It is my privilege now to turn this service over to Dr. Dick Simons.
Welcome, everybody. Oh, my goodness, there are some folks here. First of all, I want to thank Pastor Wilson for loaning this beautiful church to us for this occasion. It really is a beautiful, beautiful church. And she didn't just loan the church to us, she loaned her two major assistants to us. Fran Cook knew what the program should look like before I even saw it or did anything with it. And she was absolutely right. And John Walp has been wonderful in terms of everything technical, working with Mark Groth. So, thank all of you for being here in person. Some people made a long journey here. Brad Cooper from Florida, Michael Simons from Costa Rica, Lisa Simons and Bill Gordon from Northern California, and I hope Bruce and Stephanie Butel, also definitely part of the family from Southern California. There are people who couldn't be here, but they're here in spirit. And there are other people who will be here through the digital magic of YouTube. And I hope they get a clear picture of the event. You're all here to celebrate Barbara's life. What you probably didn't know, most of you, 2 days ago, June the 24th, if Barbara had lived, it would have been our 60th wedding anniversary. And we didn't rush into marriage. We knew each other for 9 years before we got married. So you add it all together, it's 69 years. I'm going to call it 70. You know, it's a nice round figure. 70 years that we intertwined with each other's lives. We met in April 1952 in South Bend, Indiana. We were in a play together, a play called John Loves Mary. I was 18 and finishing up my sophomore year at Notre Dame, and Barbara was 16 and finishing up her junior year in high school. And this was the first play that she was ever in. So she was very excited and very happy. And of course, she was on time for everything and knew all of her lines before any of the rest of us, but she really was excited. I don't think she ever came across what Sam Goldwyn thought about acting. He didn't think much of acting. He said, acting is easy. Anybody can be an actor. All you have to do is be honest. And once you've learned to fake that, you've got it made. Well, as I got to know Barbara better, as the rehearsals went on, I learned that the theater and acting were not in any way in her plans for the future. She was passionate about music, and she had big dreams about piano. She wanted to be a concert pianist. Now, my understanding of a concert pianist is somebody who goes around the country and even the world playing piano concertos. They play the piano part and the orchestra plays the orchestra part. Now, it also became clear to me as I got to know Barbara better that she also wanted a traditional life. She wanted a family, she wanted to marry, she wanted children, she wanted grandchildren, she wanted a home, she wanted neighbors, she wanted a dog. Now, how in the world are you going to put those two things together? Concert pianist and a family. It seemed to me it was not going to be easy, but if anybody could do it, Barbara could do it. However, she had something more important to worry about right at that time when we were doing the play. Her father died as a relatively young man just 3 years earlier. He had started a business, was hoping to create wealth for his family, and he died suddenly and unexpectedly of a heart attack. He left a widow, Sylvia, and Barbara. So just forget about your lessons in musical history, composition, the piano. They were poor. They had all they could do to put food on the table. And that's when the nuns of St. Mary came to Barbara's rescue. I don't know where they met her. We had a lot of choral groups in South Bend at that time. We still had a Studebaker chorus, and she played for them. The First Presbyterian Church in South Bend had a wonderful chorus, and she played for them. Maybe they met her there, I don't know. But anyway, they knew of her talent and they knew of her financial situation. And they offered her lessons in all of those areas that I mentioned to you. And they basically saved her life musically. And over the next years, her teenage years, she really achieved quite a level of excellence. She was applying for a Fulbright scholarship, and as part of that resume, she recorded a disc of 4 pieces. Our daughter, Kimberly, looked in a box in the basement and found that CD, which everybody had forgotten about. I wonder how many treasures are in people's boxes in basements. I'll bet there are quite a few. Anyway, there's this CD, and we picked the Beethoven sonata that you heard during that slides from that Kim and Sydney put together. And then during the slides that Mark and I have put together, you're going to hear a Chopin ballade. And the level of playing is very high. Really, she had come a long ways thanks to the nuns of St. Mary's. They loved Barbara and she loved them. Now we're going to move very far ahead. We're going to move to 1998, 2 years before the centennial. Our grandson Hunter was born that summer, and Barbara had been teaching for 22 years in Colorado. She loved it. She loved her students. She loved the recitals that they gave. But she made a decision that she was going to retire then, that fall. And she told all of her students, and they were all very sad, and she was very sad. It was a sad summer. But she knew Kim was going to need help with Hunter. Yeah, actually, he was a pretty good baby, really, but she needed help. She was finishing up her residency in internal medicine, and Barbara didn't hesitate. Family always came first for her. And but she was going to do one further event. She had put together a wonderful talk on George Gershwin, his art, his life, and his tragic death from a brain tumor that should have been diagnosed much earlier, but was not. That September 28th, which was the 100th anniversary of Gershwin's birth, his centennial, she gave this talk at the Health Sciences Center. It was a great talk. And she had the whole thing memorized. I don't know how she did it, but she did. It's irony that someone who had a memory like that could develop dementia, but dementia doesn't play favorites. And at that evening, Paula Bernstein, a colleague of mine and a good friend of ours, gave a wonderful introduction to Barbara. Her musical background primarily, but also the kind of person she was. It was a beautiful introduction, and Barbara responded to Paula with her thanks, and thanks for the other people that helped her with the talk. And then we're going to step right ahead. We're not going to show you the talk. We're going to skip right ahead to the conclusion of the talk, an excerpt from Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue. And Barbara introduces the student, Michael Heller, who plays the piano part, and Barbara plays the orchestra part. And this was how that evening ended. And I thought it might be interesting for all of you to see just how passionate Barbara could be with a student playing Rhapsody in Blue. That's what we'll do now.
Most extraordinary woman. And when I read what she's done in her career, there's a kind of a reading between the lines that you have to supply for yourself. But what you will see is a thread of extraordinary devotion and responsibility, clear prioritizing, using her gifts to benefit her community in ways that are truly immeasurable by now, but also a devotion to her family that is really very wonderful, and a kind of a loving quality. Everything that she does is nurturing and creative. So with that in mind, I will explain a little bit about her career. She has been dedicated to teaching piano for over 30 years, and it's in that capacity that she's very well known in our community. Many of her students have won both state and district piano competitions and have gone on to pursue musical careers of their own, of some eminence. Barbara began studying the piano herself at the age of 8, and by the time she was the ripe old age of 12, she had been accepted as a special student in both piano and theory at St. Mary's College in South Bend, Indiana. She remained there until beginning her piano performance studies at Indiana University School of Music. Now, for those of you here who may be yourselves pianists, her teacher there was named Bruno Eisner, and he formerly was on the faculty at Columbia University in New York City. You know, pianists have a lineage of their own, too. During her subsequent years in Chicago, Barbara studied with a Russian pianist, Dr. Leo Podolsky, while attending an affiliate of the Chicago Conservatory of Music. While studying in Chicago, she concertized throughout the Midwest and was guest pianist with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra in 1959. I believe that Barbara began teaching piano in New York. Is that right, Barbara? So that's where her career as a teacher began. By this time, she was married to Dr. Dick Simons, whom we all know and love, and they had a family. During her children's elementary school years at PS 139, I love that, New York school, PS 139 in Brooklyn, New York, she volunteered many hours a week teaching music to grades kindergarten through 6. At that time, PS 139 was within a district that could not afford paid music teachers. So one can only imagine the contribution that Barbara made during those years to children who otherwise would have had no musical education in their public school education. Barbara's interest in education, her commitment to it and to the community continues. She's an active member of the National Music Teachers Association, and she's also on the board of the University of Denver's Lamont School of Music. For more than 10 years, Barbara has added lecture presentations to her busy schedule. Now, this is a schedule that has included teaching 50 private piano lessons weekly, if you can imagine that. But meanwhile, she's found time to make presentations on Johann Sebastian Bach, an integration of life and art, Rachmaninoff, a revolution from within and without, and of course, tonight's presentation, George Gershwin and American Rhapsody. Barbara first gave this Gershwin presentation in 1993 in the Conflict, Creativity, and the Arts Conference, which was held that year in Austin, Texas. During this year of Gershwin's 100th birthday celebration, she's received numerous requests to present this talk again. In fact, she's kind of taken it on the road and has presented it now very widely. We're very fortunate that she's here to present it to us tonight. I might mention that Barbara told me that very recently she transferred all of her beloved piano students to other teachers so that she could pretty much, to a very large usage of her time. I don't think it's full time, but she's taking care of her first grandchild now, which to me is just typical of Barbara because that's where her love belongs right now, and that's what she's doing right now. Barbara?
Well, I am truly honored to be here this evening, and I certainly want to thank Paula Bernstein for her wonderful introduction of me. It was not brief, but I'm grateful. I'm also very grateful to her because she is going to moderate the discussion at the end of this evening. My thanks also go to Larry Hall and the program committee, especially Erlene Del Pozo, for inviting me to give this Gershwin talk on the eve, literally, of the 100th anniversary of his birth. Once again, Mark Groth is up in the booth, and I owe him many thanks for his multimedia expertise and also for his incredible creation of that poster that you saw out in the lobby and of the flyer that went with it. It truly is a work of art. He's a very, very gifted man. My thanks go as well to Lynn Borden, who typed the manuscript for me and also mailed out the flyers. And also many thanks to Peggy Stahl, who graciously agreed to do a summary for the newsletter of this talk. Lastly, and really most importantly, I want to thank my dear husband, Dick, for his love and his help and his support over so many, many years. However, I've chosen instead to play for you a portion of the Rhapsody, not the whole 15 minutes, that a student and I performed several years ago. I began teaching Michael Heller when he was 5 years old, and I taught him until he graduated from high school and went on to college. As you will see and hear, he is a truly talented pianist, a wonderful musician, and it was a privilege for me to be his teacher, but not only because of his talent, also because of his dedication and his willingness to work very hard. I loved playing the orchestral part on the second piano with him.
How in the world did they manage to do that? I think, isn't it time now, Mark, for our slideshow? This cannot compete, is not intended to compete with what Sydney and Kim did. But just some single slides. South Bend House, Barbara's house. Medical school. I'm glad we don't have any other photographs. Lisa, our first. Michael, our second. Kim sleeping with her dolly. Emily McClintock on the bottom right, taken from us far too soon. Lisa with her Shih Tzus. And Michael with Millie. Martell family, Barb's brother. Barbara with makeup. No makeup. Picking up Charlie at the Breeders. Waving goodbye, New Year's party. Well, now we're going to have remembrances from all of us, and I think we'll start with Kim.
Can you hear me? Is it working? Okay. That's a really hard act to follow. So, it was difficult to decide what I wanted to share today. There are so many wonderful memories of my mom, from my own as well as those shared by many of you, and I couldn't really figure out how to condense them into a cohesive expression of love. So instead, I've decided to focus on the lessons that I learned from my mom and to thank her for all she's given to me. So this is the dialogue that I would have with her if she were still with us today, in no particular order. Thank you for bringing me into this world. Your family was pretty complete, with my siblings being 5 and 7 years older than me. So thanks for having me and letting me join the fun, but I'm still bummed you never gave me a little brother or sister. Thanks for showing me the value of an education and hard work. You and Dad taught me the value of an education. It's so much more than a degree on a piece of paper. It's a chance to expand your mind, learn new ways of doing things, use the muscle of your brain to be more tolerant and open to new ideas and develop lasting friendships. And then apply that knowledge and those skills to a career or careers. You researched so many colleges when it was time for me to go, and Trinity University was the perfect fit, and now Hunter and Sydney are following in my footsteps. I think you secretly hoped you could come with me. You were a lifelong learner. You even audited Dad's human behavior course and earned a perfect score, a medical school class while working full-time and raising a family. Who does that? Mom. And the speeches you prepared for the Creativity and Madness conferences on Bach and Rachmaninoff and Gershwin, just amazing. You memorized them entirely and prepared them without PowerPoint. No cheat sheets. I can't get through a meeting at work or a memorial service without a cheat sheet. Thank you for teaching me everything I needed to know about being a mom. Your family always came first. You made it seem effortless to do everything you did in a day, and rarely did you seem frazzled. Once I became a mom and then a single mom working full-time, I marveled at your skills. Your love shone through in your nurturing ways, respecting us as individuals and supporting our growth in different ways. Your love was selfless, limitless, and unconditional. You became a grandma a bit later in life, since I was your youngest child and the only one to have kids. But you embraced the role as you did everything else in life, with unabashed love and attention showered onto your grandkids and amazing attention to detail. Particularly after my divorce in 2007, I leaned on you and Dad for emotional support and help in raising my kids as a single mom. You drove from your home in Greenwood Village to Netherland, which is about 60 miles one way, every week, staying for 2 nights at a time. You helped with everything, shuttling the kids to and from school, volunteering in their classrooms, cooking, laundry, homework, taking the kids to the doctor. I used to joke that you were making it very hard for any man I might meet, as no one could compare to you as my partner. You did a pretty good job, though, Mark. You delighted the kids' classmates at every holiday, the traditional ones like Christmas, but also Halloween, Valentine's Day, Easter, with gift bags for everyone, including the teachers and administrative staff. You genuinely were the most kind and generous person I've ever known. And if I ever chided you about spoiling the kids too much, you would tell me you'd earned it. You loved to say that becoming a grandma was the award for raising 3 kids through their teenage years. Thank you for teaching me to cook. From the time I was a toddler and cut my lip falling off a chair while helping you bake, I've watched and been by your side preparing so many family meals and food for celebrations. As you always did, I express my love for friends and family by preparing well-thought-out meals. From planning a menu to shopping to preparing the food, you still get to join us at the dinner table through your recipes. But I've never been able to get as organized as you, setting out the china for a holiday meal 1 week in advance and covering it with another tablecloth to avoid any dust accumulation. I'm lucky the table gets set before the meal. Just wow. Thank you for making it a priority to eat dinner as a family most nights of the week. Until I became a mom with a full-time job, I couldn't comprehend what a feat this was. You worked late teaching piano lessons before and after school, so we often ate at 7:30 at night. In the middle of the day, you would prep the meals and leave us notes of things to do after school. And never do I recall you ever opening a can of SpaghettiOs. Everything was homemade. I've worked to instill the same tradition in my kids, but I must admit frozen pizza has made it to my table a few nights. Thank you for making me write thank you notes. I used to dread the days after holidays and birthdays where you made me sit at the kitchen table writing thank you notes. Sometimes I would daydream. You would not let me leave until I was finished. I've done the same with my kids, and so many people comment on the beautiful handwritten notes, a lost art. Thank you for teaching me the true meaning of friendship. You always told me it isn't the quantity but quality of friendships that matter, but you had both in spades. You taught me to be the friend who calls first, to remember birthdays and holidays, to support your friends during difficult times and celebrate with them during the joyful ones. Going through your address book and calling many of your friends after your death was so heartwarming. You stayed in touch with friends from elementary school. All this without email or a cell phone. And you always treated all my friends like another daughter or son. Everyone felt so welcome in our home. Thank you for teaching me the beauty of writing an annual Christmas card. You never failed to put together the most beautiful cards, whether it was a nice family photo or an entire collage of photos. You never skipped a year, and you would write personal notes in your beautiful cursive handwriting. I can't say I've been good about that aspect, but ever since graduating college, I have sent out an annual card with photos and a typed update of the year. My favorite thing is waiting to get cards from other family and friends. It's the most exciting time to go to the post office. You always displayed cards from your friends and family on a red velvet banner hung in the family room. As one friend said it best, Barbie always outdid herself with legal-size family pictures and lovely long letters written in her beautiful handwriting. How she adored her family. Thank you for bringing the joy of music into my life and teaching me and my children how to play piano. The times I think of you and miss you the most is when I sit down to play piano or watch one of my children performing. Your powerful musical genes will live on in us forever and be passed down for generations to come. While it wasn't always easy having your mom as a piano teacher during the teenage years, I'm so glad we stuck it out. We both learned so much from each other, and our relationship grew in ways it never could have without our bond of music. If I could go back to one moment of time in my 50 years with you, it would be playing a two-piano piece together. And if I could go back to a time before I was born, it would be to watch you perform with the Chicago Symphony. You had a profound influence on the life of your students. Your strength, wisdom, love, and acceptance were exactly what so many needed during the challenging middle school and high school years. You did all this through your love and deep understanding of music. You were a music therapist before that career path even existed. I wanted to share a story I heard from one of Mom's students' mothers, Judy Hilton, about her son, John. One year as a teenager, he chose a piece to play for the recital and played it for Mom. And she said, "John, that isn't how it's played." And he quickly replied, "Well, that's how I'm going to play it." Judy pointed out how many teachers would say, "No, if you can't perform it correctly, then you can't play it." But not Mom. She just said, "Okay." Thank you for teaching me to love animals. Oh, you were a lover of dogs. And all of our family pets chose you as their favorite. They knew, as we all did, who cared for them, fed them, trained them, took them outside, and let them sleep curled up next to her at night. And every one of your children's dogs loved you too. Thank you for letting us put a pool at the Martin Lane house. Mom was not a swimmer. I don't think I ever saw her put her head underwater. She did love being near the ocean, though. When Dad's plans for a tennis court fell through, a pool was the second option, and Dad and us kids were thrilled. You were the one who knew how much work it would be and who would do the majority of the daily caretaking. You. Despite having nearly 2 acres of land to care for, without a sprinkler system, mind you, you graciously agreed to the pool. My memories of glorious summer afternoons spending hours in the pool with you and our neighbor, Betsy Stetner, sitting under the umbrella are too numerous to count. Thank you for taking us to Hawaii. Well, thank you to Dad also, since it was his Creativity and Madness conferences which provided our family with this opportunity. 3 family vacations to Hawaii during high school. Need I say more? But I think Lisa and I are still bummed that you didn't let us charge items to the room after the first trip. I guess the $1,000 food and drink bill gave us away? Thank you for showing me the meaning of home. Home is not about the size of your house or how many possessions you have in it, but it's about stability and a safe place and one where you always belong and can always be yourself. When I think of home, I think of you. You even set up your piano studio in the apartment at Martin Lane, so you were never far from us. And lastly, I want to share a quote I found a week ago when my husband Mark and I were walking our dogs around the town of Netherland, and we came upon the local Veterans Memorial. Mom, I will miss you until the day I die, but I cherish all our memories and will pass on your wisdom to future generations. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn's rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft star that shines at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry, I am not there, I did not die. For in your heart, memory will lie and never, ever die.
Hello all. I'm Mark Patterson. I came to this family about 11 years ago. And normally when I'm speaking publicly, it's about the complex interactions of the heart and the lungs during exercise. So when Dick asked me to speak, I consider this not only an honor but a bit of a treat to talk about his lovely wife, Barbara. Now, I joined this family 11 years ago. I didn't have any children of my own, and at that point, I was used to figuring out how to solve problems and challenges on my own, and I'd been doing that since I was a very young boy. I found out very quickly that this was not how this family approached raising Hunter and Sydney. But it didn't take a village to raise them, it took a Barbara. Undoubtedly, Kim did a masterful job raising these children to become the absolutely wonderful young people that they are. But as I learned in the early morning hours 11 years ago, Barbara was a force in their lives and development. I've never been a true morning person, and this day, when the alarm goes off at 3:45 in the morning, I'm still in utter disbelief that I do this voluntarily. So it was with a foggy mind that I had some of my most meaningful interactions with Barbara. Barb was very involved in both Hunter and Sydney's lives from the start. Barb and her wonderful husband, Dick, as we all know very well, were instrumental in helping Kim while she was in training to become an internal medicine physician, and then as she got started as a full-time physician and single mother. When I moved into our Netherland home, I was typically in the kitchen getting ready for work. Kim was getting some exercise, and I would hear Barbara stirring upstairs. She would frequently spend the night to help get the children ready for school, get them off onto the bus or walking to school as it may be. And I would hear her humming a tune as she walked down the hall towards the kitchen. Likely one of her perfected piano performances. She'd walk into the kitchen, give me one of those patented Barbara Simon smiles, and suddenly my day was a bit brighter. She had the gift of gab, for sure. Frequently, I had to jog into work once I got there to ensure I actually clocked in on time because of the length of some of our conversations. You might think that our conversations would revolve around work or politics as adults do during coffee talk, but you would be mistaken. Most of these conversations would be about her grandchildren. She would go on and on about how great they are, how wonderful the schools have been to them, how she volunteered her time at the schools. She would talk to me about things that she would do to get them ready, what they liked in their lunches, what time they had to start walking to school or take the bus, and then what she would do to help get them ready for bed. So, my fear of inadequate parenting was in high gear. Over time, she would continue to give me little tidbits of parenting knowledge, and sometimes I felt that she thought I was incompetent as a new parent of a 7 and 11-year-old. But in reality, it was her way of slowly guiding me and handing off the torch that she had carried so well for so many years. In closing, I cannot thank her enough for her guidance and wisdom, and hopefully I can pay back some of what she gave to me by continuing to do the best that I can to help no longer raise, but help our now adult children navigate into their new independent lives and the families that they may start. Love you, Barb.
Lower this one a little bit shorter. Okay, so the greatest gift my grandmother ever gave me was the power and love that comes from hearing and playing music. The feeling of the vibrations from the piano were as if she was hugging me and telling me everything was going to be okay. My grandmother was a remarkable woman, one who taught me what unconditional love looked and felt like. There was never a day I questioned my grandmother's love for me and those around her. When I am faced with unbearable emotions, such as what we are all feeling today, I turn to music. I turn to what my grandmother taught me to cherish and love so deeply. It is something that I truly believe is a part of who I am through and through. Prior to my grandmother's passing in November, I decided to sit down and write her a song in October. I wanted to give her something to show how much she has forever changed my life in the best way possible, and through the language she taught me, music. I started writing the song in October and finished shortly after she passed away. When I was writing this song, I never fathomed that I would be playing this at her memorial rather than by her side. But I know now that every time I pick up an instrument, sing a song, or write something like this, she is guiding me and watching me through every step. I love you forever, Grandma.
So I think how you taught me I can be anything I wanna be. So I know no matter where we'll be, you'll be guiding me every day. It's sad to think those days were just memories for us to face when we're alone. It's hard to know, I can't see now, but I'll dream about you forevermore. 'Cause you are the reason I know which way to go. 'Cause you beside me wherever I go. I know those memories will never leave me. They'll always be just one dream away. All this love won't leave us now, even when we are not around. 'Cause you are the reason I know which way to go. 'Cause you showed me what love could bring to the darkest of days. I know it's hard to be strong. I know you think it's all gone. I'm here to say I love you. It's okay if you need to go. So here I am. 2 months have gone. I said goodbye while holding you tight. It doesn't seem like you're really gone. When I sing, you'll be in my heart. 'Cause you are the reason I know which way to go. 'Cause you showed me what love could bring to the darkest of days. I know it's hard to be strong. I know you think it's all gone. I'm here to say I love you. It's okay if you need to go. 'Cause you are the reason I know which way to go. 'Cause you showed me what love could bring to the darkest of days. I know it's hard to be strong. I know you think it's all gone. I'm here to say I love you. I will miss you.
Good morning, I'm Mark Roth. I'm betting a lot of you used Google Maps to get here this morning. I'm going to tell you a short story about how I first got to know Barbara. In May of 1979, Barbara called me and said she was having a piano recital for all her students, and would I come and record it for her. She explained how it all worked. All the students would each play a number, and it would run about an hour and a half or so. I said, sure, I'd be glad to do that. Sounded like fun. Well, it happened that that weekend was also the weekend that Kathy and I were moving into our house in Aurora. So Sunday, we were still pushing boxes around and furniture when I looked at the clock, and I said, I have got to go. We were in Aurora, and the recital was way out here west off Hamden and 285. So with equipment in the car, I zipped down to Hamden and headed west, still thinking about moving boxes and stuff. As I rode through Glendale, I realized that the directions on how to actually get to the recital were not on the seat next to me, but back on the kitchen table. And at this point, there was no time to go all the way back. Now remember, this is 2 decades before cell phones and Google Maps. But I kept rolling. I figured somehow, magically, I would recognize the right exit when I got there. But I was concerned. So I speeded up, got in the left lane and was going along, passing cars. And I passed a car and just looked in, and a couple dressed up, driving along. 2 boy and a girl in the back seat, and they were in their Sunday best too. And I said, wow, this is like Americana. This is a family out for a Sunday drive. But as I looked, the back seat, this boy and girl were not talking, they were not moving, looking around. They were like statues. They sat back there and stared. So we're going along, and now they're 8 feet away, going 65 miles an hour. And I could actually feel the tension emanating from the back seat of that car. I said, those kids are going to a piano recital. So I just backed off. They took an exit, I took the exit. They turned left on the bottom of the ramp, I turned left on the bottom of the ramp, and in 4 minutes, we pulled into the parking lot of the piano recital. I told Barbara this story, and she just laughed. She thought that was great. So, for the next 20 years, I got the phone call, and on a Sunday afternoon in May, I recorded Barbara and her students' piano recitals. Thank you, Barbara. I had fun.
For many, when you encounter somebody who is exceptional, outgoing, or a force for good, you place them on a pedestal. That person becomes a role model for you, and you naturally find yourself spending time studying them and aspiring to garner their attributes. This process of seeking and emulating your role models is a crucial step for all of our growth and development. And if life were a road trip, finding those role models, following in their footsteps, would be just like taking highways, specific detours, and side roads along the way. It's those paths you choose to follow that define the unique shape of your life's journey. While on the road trip of life, it's easy to think that the shape of that journey, molded by your role models, is the most important part of the whole thing. However, I would argue that there are more coveted positions that exist within the journey, and that's the realm within which Grandma deserves to occupy. Although frequently overlooked, the only way to complete your road trip and pursue all of your meaningful detours is if your car has a reliable engine. And that's how I see Grandma, as my engine. Her influence in my life cannot be boiled down to the capacity of a single role model, a single detour, but rather as a constant force and the person who provided me the support and nurturement I needed so that I could have a fulfilling road trip of life. After and even before I was born, my mom was tirelessly working in residency school, and my father wasn't really around. That meant for the first couple years of my life, it was Grandma and Grandpa who really had to bear the load and help care for and raise me. I don't directly remember that period, but I've been told many a time that I was a fat baby who pooped a lot. So thank you for going through that. even after these first couple years, Grandma remained a consistent, positive presence in my life during the still turbulent and challenging times. Between moving to 10 to 12 different houses and apartments before reaching 10 years old, struggling academically and socially throughout many of my schooling years, and living with an abusive father, there were plenty of road bumps and obstacles that could have set me on a path for a pretty miserable road trip in life. However, even in the face of all this, she was my engine. She was the antithesis of selfish and was more than willing to devote her life towards helping me and many others see the light at the end of the tunnel. Whether it would be spending hours helping me study for my classes, spoiling me with treats and silly toys from Target, or taking me to the water park, teaching me piano, and especially giving me back rubs, like all the time. She was the engine who provided a supportive and comforting presence that allowed me to overcome the hurdles which could have set me on, which could have really screwed up the shape of my road trip and got in the way of living a fun and exciting life. Saying goodbye to somebody who was so impactful in your life is never easy, and I wish I could have told you more often how much I appreciate you. Thank you for everything and putting me in a position where I can be where I am now.
Several weeks after my mom passed, my dad had a conversation with my cousin Bruce, who's here today, and he reminded my dad of something he had said at my wedding 30 years ago. And it is a quote from a journalist, James Reston, who had a very long marriage. And he said, "Love at first sight is certainly wonderful, but love at last sight is sublime." And they definitely had a sublime marriage of 60 years. I love you so much, Mom.
Good morning. I'm Bill Gordon, and of everybody in here, I've probably known Barb the least amount of time, although the time we did have was really special. She was really a special lady. I met her, and actually I met Lisa first. She thought it was a good idea to introduce me to the family. Well, that worked out so far. I just wanted to say, I had to say something, that she was really a terrific lady, and she always treated me like one of her own. And for that, I am grateful. And the one thing that we did share was ice cream. So many meals that we had together were we went through in a hurry just so we could get to the ice cream. Barb, you're a terrific lady, and all of you people were very fortunate to have her for as long as you did. I wish I could have had her for longer. And wherever. Thanks, Barb. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. The hard part about going last is I'm the tough guy in the family, and now I've always definitely worked up to probably crying when everybody else held out. I should have gone first when I was tough. And watching this earlier, it's funny because it made me think of two things. One is I live in Costa Rica, so I fly a lot, and I have to fly a long way. And I fly United, And the Gershwin song is the United song. And every time I get on the plane, I think of my mom. Every time. There was another thing they said, which was Johann Sebastian, which I thought was so funny, I completely forgot. 30 years ago, I had this black Labrador. She was a great dog. She was an AKC registered dog. I named her Chief. She was a girl. And I get the paperwork to register her, and I have to come up with this cool name. And I'm looking in this book of all these cool names people came up with for their dog. And I came up with Johann Sebastian Little Doggy Bark Bark, and that was her name. And I haven't thought of that in 30 years until I heard that. I'm like, oh my God, I forgot all about that. And then, of course, I usually wear flip-flops and shorts, and I was gonna wear shorts today, I was. And Mom would have found that funny, because Mom just knows that I don't wear ties. And then, of course, the one photo Dad has of me as a little kid is the only photo I've ever had of a tie. And then I get here yesterday, and of course, everybody knows, and Mom would always say, if you want bad weather, have Mike come visit. Because I live in the most beautiful weather, and every time I come here, if there's a snowstorm that they haven't had in 41 years, it happens when I'm here. I'm looking on the weather app all week. It's 97 degrees. I'm like, this will be great. Shorts and flip-flops, I'm gonna do great. And then I get here yesterday and a rainstorm, it's 50 degrees. I don't have anything but shorts. So I had to race out last night before I took my dad to dinner to find a pair of pants at least. So Mom would have found it humorous, though, that I would have been here in my shorts and my flip-flops. Because Mom had the best sense of humor. And Mom had a great laugh. God, she had a great laugh. So I remember once, and you're going to find out here in my stories, that I was not a very good teenager. Horrible teenager. But I hope I made up for it as an adult. But I was once sleeping in my car, waiting to buy concert tickets. And it was freezing cold. It was a Denver snowstorm. And we're parked behind a Walgreens or something. And I had to take a pee. So I get out. There's no bathrooms. There's nowhere to go. There's a dumpster. So I just go behind the dumpster and I take a pee. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. And sure enough, the cop drives by. There hasn't been a cop for hours. And here I am taking a pee, and this big woman gets out and screams at me and slams me against the hood and totally embarrasses me and writes me this ticket. And I'm a minor, so of course I've got to come home and tell my parents he got to go to court with me again. And I thought, Dad's going to find this hilarious. Every man's peed outside. Everybody. Mom's going to be so embarrassed again. She's going to think, oh, my horrible son. So I finally get up the nerve at dinner to tell the story, and Dad's like, oh my God, that's terrible. And my mom's like, oh, that's the funniest thing in the world. And she's laughing, and I thought, Mom's cooler than I thought. Mom had a great sense of humor. She always stood up for her friends. She always stood up for her family. Everybody was number one, and she stood up. She was always number two, and you were number one. And again, I'm in trouble with the police. I come to visit, and I'm even an adult now. I couldn't even get away from it as an adult. Dad's got a brand new car. It's an ice storm. I think I was going to pick Kim up at work, and I'm driving the car down the street, and it's black ice, and all of a sudden I hit the brakes, and the car doesn't stop, and it doesn't stop, and it doesn't stop, and I go through a stop sign, and I hit this sign. And the sign falls over, and the car goes into the ditch, and it's like 500 degrees below zero. And I'm like, Dad's brand new car, it just figures. So I walked a couple miles back to the house. Dad and I take the car, and I think we call a couple neighbors, and we come and we push the car out of the ditch, and I drive off to go get Kim at the ice cream store, I think is where you were working. And somehow between then and when we took the car away, somebody had called the police. They saw the car in the ditch, and they were doing the right thing. So the police come and see the license plate. And so, I go, and I don't know, a couple hours, I'm picking Kim up, and the police show up at our house. And they were there to give me a ticket and arrest me, believe it or not, the Cherry Hills police for hit and run. And Mom, she laid into that cop. And the next day, because she said, how dare you come to our house at 10 o'clock at night over a stupid sign? We'll be at the police station in the morning. And we trucked in there in the morning, and man, did she lay into that police chief. Don't you have anything better to do? And I'm like, that's my mom. I just shut up because I knew where I was going if I opened up my mouth. And she would always push everybody to be the best, all of her students. They were the best. She always encouraged you. She always told you, you could do anything you want, but be the best at it you possibly can. I don't care what you do in life, Mike, just be the best. And everybody was the best when they were around Barbara. She brought the best out of everybody. And I remember in one of my quarterly grades, not the semester, I got a C. And I came home with my report card, and there was the C. And Mom said, you got a C. I said, Mom, it's average. Just leave me alone. And she looked at me. You are not average. You are the best at everything. You don't ever settle for average. And I remember thinking, wow. And for the rest of my life, everything I ever did, I did the best I could. And I'd think of my mom. And I was a straight A student after that, all through high school. I got 1 B. I pushed that C up to a B. I worked so hard. I couldn't get it to an A, but I got an A in every single other subject. And it's so funny, because you know what subject that was? Spanish. And I live in Costa Rica, and I still struggle every day with Spanish. You know, my girlfriend's like, you've been here 18 years. Don't you know any Spanish? I'm like, I got a B for the love of God. I would get a D- in Spanish today. I'm telling you, it was brutal. But Mom loved everybody, and everybody loved Mom. That's what's so great. She knew everybody's name, and they knew her name, and she was so generous. She knew the dry cleaner's name. She'd walk into the dry cleaner, and the woman would be like, Barbara. And everywhere we went, all the grocery store people, hi, Barbara. And she knew all their names, hi, Eileen, Darlene, Lisa, whatever. And she was so generous, she tipped everybody. My father, too. They always taught me to be so generous. People ask where I got all my generosity and all the charities that I do. I go, my mom and my dad. They would go out and tip the garbage man and give him a Christmas gift, and the mailman, and everybody. Everybody my mother knew, and everybody loved my mother. So, I live in Costa Rica. It's this amazing country. It's a beautiful place. My mom loved Costa Rica. She would always talk about Costa Rica. Even at the end, when she could barely remember our names, she would never forget Costa Rica. And she would never forget a couple things. She'd always say, do you remember that lobster dinner at El Valero? I mean, at the very end, when we were in the hospital with Dad having his heart surgery, and Mom couldn't remember, she'd ask the same question 15 times, and then she'd go, oh, you remember that lobster dinner at El Valero? It's a hotel in Costa Rica on the beach. She never forgot her memories of Costa Rica. I talked to my mom the night before she died to wish her happy Thanksgiving. And she said, could you just take me to Costa Rica? I'm sorry. And she said, I promise I won't be a burden. I said, well, I think I'm probably not the one to be taking care of you. You would definitely be a burden, but I love you, and I don't think Costa Rica's in the plans, Mom, but I'm taking a part of her back to Costa Rica, and we're going to put her in the ocean. Costa Rica is the happiest country on the earth. It's one of the most beautiful places on the earth. It's the greenest country in the world. The friendliest country in the world. And I always wondered, how could that be? It's this amazing place. When you ask a Costa Rican, how you doing? They always say, I'm doing great, thanks to God. How's your family? They're wonderful, Mike, thanks to God. During the pandemic, when somebody had a job, you're doing okay, I have a job, thanks to God. We were delivering billions of pounds of food. They would always say, thank you and thanks to God. And it made me wonder. The Simons family is not known for being religious, and there's been debates over the years about God. But having lived in Costa Rica, changed my view. Because there must be something more powerful. If there's a place like Costa Rica. But what is not debatable is that my mother is an angel. And she's not just sitting in a box, and she's not just in a urn. My mother is somewhere amazing. And she's watching us today. And I was not going to zoom this one in. And I know she's watching us, and she's watching her grandkids every day. All she ever talked about is how much she loved you, how proud of you she is. And I know someday I'm going to see Mom again. Thank you.
One more video of Kim playing with another.
Oh, I know. Yeah. I'm so moved by my family and what I've heard and experienced. I think I may still tell you about Mom at her most loyal. That's what I'll do. Mom at her most loyal. We went out to California for Lisa's 50th birthday. And on the way back, the Chinook winds really were just, terrible, scary. They're just rocking the plane. And it really felt like we were going to go down. And I felt Barbara's hands squeezing my arm, and she looked at me and she said, "You know, Dick, if we go down, if the plane crashes, I'll never see Charlie again." I looked at her, I said, "You got a point, dear. It's not the first thing in my mind, but yeah." And then there was another time when, most determined, try to make this real short, memory care wanted Barbara down there. She was not ready to go down to memory care, but whenever I left for the office, she would get really scared and she would go looking for me and she would try to find people to help her look for me, even though I was at the office. So they had her, and they invited her down for lunch. And I'm thinking, oh boy, this is, watch it. They won't let her out. But she's got all dressed up and she was ready to go and she was excited. She says, "You want to come down with me?" And I said, "No, daughter, you go down. You meet the people down there and then you can come back and tell me about it." And about 15 minutes later, she's back. And I said, "Barbara, that was a very short lunch. What happened?" And she said, "There are old people down there." I said, "Yeah." And she says, "They're all sitting in chairs and they're sleeping. I'm not going down there." I said, "Good for you. You're not going down to memory care. You don't need to be down in memory care. You're staying here with me. We'll see this through. I'm closing the office, so I'm not going to be going to the office anymore. don't worry, we'll see it through. And we did see it through. A great Irish poet by the name of Yeats wrote a love poem to the lady that he loved. Loved her all of his life. Her name was Maud Gonne, Gonne. She was way ahead of her time. She was a fighter for Irish rights and women's rights. And Yeats asked her to marry him twice, but she turned him down both times. I'm telling you this because I want you to know I'm luckier in love than Yeats was. She didn't turn me down. And that's the luckiest thing that ever happened to me. So I'm going to read this poem. Now, when I showed this poem to Mark Groth, he said, "Good luck reading it, Dick, without crying." But, you know, I don't really want to cry because Barbara had a long life and a good life and maybe even a great life. And she had a hard death. So I'm going to read this poem in gratitude for her life and her love, and in sadness for her death. And don't worry, Mark, it'll be over before you know it. It's called When You Are Old. It's on your program. When you are old and gray and full of sleep and nodding by the fire, take down this book and slowly read and dream of the soft look your eyes had once and of their shadows deep. How many loved your moments of glad grace and loved your beauty with love false or true? But one man loved the pilgrim soul in you and loved the sorrows of your changing face. And bending down beside the glowing bars, murmur a little sadly how love fled and paced upon the mountains overhead and hid his face amid a crowd of stars. We're going to conclude with Barbara at her most passionate, really. Passionate about Mozart, passionate about playing the piano herself, and passionate about her students. And this particular student is a very special student, and she'll introduce the student to you, and we'll hear the two of them together play Mozart.
On the surface, Mozart's music may seem merely elegant and pretty. Mozart wasn't interested in revolutionizing the ingredients of music, as was Beethoven. But he was revolutionary in what he caused those ingredients to say. Mozart's music has great emotion and extraordinary technique. Yet the people who knew Mozart saw the external side of him as being silly, lively, and cheerful. The internal Mozart, however, was filled with great melancholy. And it's this side of Mozart's character that shines through his music. Even at its most light-hearted, there's a sense that grief and tragedy are not very far below the surface. Kim and I would like now to play for you the beautiful second movement of Mozart's great D minor piano concerto. For those of you who saw Amadeus, this lovely, lovely melody may come back in your mind. Kim is a sophomore at Cherry Creek High School, an honor student, and section leader for her first altos in Creek's very select choir, Girls 21. She also has been chosen to sing and dance in Creek's musical, No, No, Nanette, which will be presented in February.
Thank you, Simon's family, for an absolutely beautiful service, and to those who assisted, folks back at the sound and AV station, others. It was an absolutely glorious tribute to Barbara's life.
Thank you, dear. Thank you so much.
A final blessing for us this day. Deep peace of the running wave to you. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you. Deep peace of the shining stars to you. Deep peace of the gentle night to you. Moon and stars pour their healing light on you. Deep peace to you this day and the days ahead. May it be so. Amen.
Thank you all so much for coming.